Between April 1992 and February 1996, Sarajevo suffered the longest siege of a capital city in modern warfare. There are echoes of the siege all over the city, and those who lived through it will forever remember the fear, the courage, the bravery, but also the terrible loss. The siege lasted 1,425 days. Despite a lack of heavy weapons or armour, Bosnian government defence forces and ordinary civilians refused to surrender to the besieging Serb forces who controlled the hills surrounding the city. It's estimated that almost 14,000 people were killed during the years of the siege. Over 10,000 apartments were destroyed, and Bosnian cultural heritage was also deliberately targeted in the bombing of the university library. Everything and everyone was a target. The collective trauma of the thousands of people who lived through the siege is beyond calculation. The Holiday Inn, as it was then known, housed the foreign press during the war, which is why it avoided the worst of the shelling. However, the road from the hotel to the old town, where I'm standing now, was one of the most dangerous parts of the city. The journalists gave it a nickname, which has since become famous. They called it Sniper's Alley.
Now, as of this part here, this used to be like a Sniper Alley street. It was called like that. Why? Can you just ignore this shopping center on the left side? This thing was never existing before the wartime or during the wartime. This was built after the wartime. So if there's no shopping center, then you would clearly see the hill over there on the left side, and that hill was controlled by the Serbs. So they were killing everyone here on this street. Whoever would be seen would be shot dead, you know. And that hotel, the yellow one, Hotel Holiday, way back it was called Holiday Inn, during the wartime it was packed with the foreign journalists. So the story is that they were the ones seeing that people are being killed on this street, so they started calling this street Sniper Alley, you know. No one else. Not us, not the locals living here, because for us, to be honest, it was kind of silly calling just one street Sniper Alley, you know. For us there was more than 100 of these streets, but then they called that because they were there, you know. So definitely it's if we would, for example, if we would continue driving this road and 3 crossroads down this road, then you will see one street coming from the right side, and one day on that street I almost get killed because I was going to the school. I was 13 years old, and I entered into that street, although I didn't know at that time that that was a Sniper Alley street. And basically what happened is that they shot at me, but the bullet missed me by 10-15 centimeters from my leg, you know. So I was really lucky, and when that thing happened I jumped, you know. I was running like a crazy, zigzagging. I survived, you know. So, but the thing is, I learned my lesson that day, and the lesson was, next time when you see the street is empty, do not walk in that street, because most likely it's a Sniper Alley street. For sure it's empty with a reason, you know. So, but the thing is, you have to know these rules to survive the war. But no matter how hard you try to stay focused, sometimes you will lose focus because the war was long, you know. So, and most likely you will make only one mistake, and that will be your last one. But if you're lucky, like I was, then you will get a second chance, you know. But not many people were lucky like that, because a lot of kids were killed in the city during the wartime.
Many of the snipers' positions were up here. This is Sarajevo's Jewish cemetery, the largest in southeast Europe. During the war, it found itself on the front line. Walking around these ancient stones would have meant certain death. The destruction of Sarajevo occurred only 8 years after the 1984 Winter Olympics had announced the city's arrival onto the global arena. It was the biggest party in the city's history. Built for the Winter Olympics, the Hotel Igman was the largest hotel in Yugoslavia at that time, and is a prime example of brutalism. It was completely destroyed by Serbian shelling and has never been rebuilt. Many of the children that had celebrated the Olympics now found themselves living through a nightmare. A memorial to the children who lost their lives now stands in a city centre park. UNICEF estimated that at least 40% of children in the city had been directly shot at by snipers. The Museum of War Childhood curates the memories of those who grew up in Sarajevo during those years, alongside newer stories from children in Ukraine and Gaza. It's a place of sadness, innocence, and hope.
The siege was started officially April 4, 1992. The Serbs, they had a plan to occupy Sarajevo and Bosnia. The plan was to occupy Bosnia and Sarajevo 7 days. It means blitzkrieg. Why? Because they know we didn't have army. We didn't have weapons. In Sarajevo was living 500,000 people, had nothing. No gun, no arm, no weapon, no army, no nothing. But Serbs, they try to do that because they know that we don't have nothing. They try to come in Sarajevo, but we organized small groups who had some kind of the weapon. I had pistol from the First World War. My grandpa, he was soldier, First World War. And I take this pistol and 9 bullets. I was lucky man because I had something. Some people had same. Some people had hunting gun. And how to fight with this against the Serbs? But no other option. I have 2 sons. Younger son is 18 months old. Older son 6-year old. This is my motive. Serbs didn't have motive like me. And that was the reason because I was voluntary in the war. Nobody said you have to take a gun and go to fight. Nobody. I do that alone to protect my kids. I didn't care for Sarajevo, for Bosnia. First my kids, my family. After that, Sarajevo, Bosnia, and that was the reason. And the Serbs, they are trying, not only Serbs, and Croatia, and we are fighting against 3 countries. We are surrounded with them. Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro. We are fighting. We didn't give them the chance to kill our people, Bosnian people. In Bosnia, in Sarajevo, it was mixed people. In Bosnian army, it was mixed army. Serb, Croats, Bosnian. All people who liked Sarajevo and Bosnia, they are staying in Bosnian army. And that's the reason we are defense ourselves. We are defense Bosnia. Bosnia is multi-ethnic country, multi-religious country. Some people call Sarajevo European Jerusalem. Could you imagine that? European Jerusalem, because 4 main religions living in Sarajevo more than 500 years without any problem till the last war. Till the last war.
So as you can see, we were here in the city, completely surrounded by the Serbs. So everything which is this like a red shaded color was controlled by them. But I always say not only this part, but also this blue part was not blue at the beginning, it was red, meaning controlled by the Serbs. So we had a situation that city was overcrowded with people who came all over Bosnia trying to, because these smaller towns and villages, when they were burned to the ground by the Serbs, all those who were lucky enough to escape those things, they would join these UN peace convoys to be transferred into Sarajevo. And they were thinking it's safer to be here because we had a lot of international journalists, UN Blue Helmets, European observers, and so on and so on. So we became overcrowded in the city. But there was a problem because we didn't have any food. No shop were operating, so where to find the food, that the humanitarian catastrophe was about to happen when the UN realized that, and they said, okay, they'll bring the food with planes at the airport. But how? Because the airport was controlled by the Serbs. Well, they said, we'll talk to the Serbs, they'll let it go. They did talk to the Serbs, but the Serbs didn't care. At the end, they threatened to the Serbs. They said, if catastrophe happens in the city, they'll be the one to be blamed and quite possibly NATO bombing them. After that threat, Serbs agreed, but under one condition, that no one should use the airport except the UN. And to be honest, UN had to agree on that because that's the only condition they put on, under, And UN, later on, when the UN took over the airport, Not only that we were still surrounded, people of Sarajevo, but we were not able to use the airport, or we were not able to go from here to there. So why would we like to go there? Because of the food. There was no food in the city, but there was some over there because of the mountains, of the villages, of farming and so on and so on. Serbs had a lot of sniper guys installed here and here, and they had a night vision optics, so they could clearly see people running in the night. And a lot of people was killed during running over the airport in the night. And I always say not only the civilians but also soldiers.
The solution was a 340-metre lifeline tunnel under the airport runway that was dug entirely by hand. On the city side it began under an apartment block, and on the north side it began at the unassuming house of the Kolar family.
And that first period, it was a top secret thing, you know. No one knew about the tunnel except our army, you know. But the news spread really fast. So UN find about the tunnel, but they said they don't care. They only agreed about the overground. They don't care what's happening underground, you know. Serbs find about the tunnel also, and they were heavily bombing these two neighborhoods every day. They could never bomb most of the tunnel because, as you can see, most of the tunnel was going under the airport, under the UN territory. So they could only bomb the exits or the entrances, although they never knew where those. They only guessed.
Mustafa vividly remembers his first crossing.
We walked all the way from the top of the hill to the city center, and then we walked all across the town behind this hill, and then we entered the tunnel on that other side. And then we walked all the way through, and we exited over there right next to that house where we entered, you know. And once you exit here, then you ran across the street in between those houses. There is a trench there, 2 meters deep trench in the ground, and we would go into the trench, and then you go all the way to the town. And we did. And that was really big shock to me, entering that town. Why? Because to see the shops selling food, that was like if you would see the same like if you would see the spaceship landing right now. That was really crazy, because all that time no shop was operating, and that became normal to you in your head, you know, image. But on the other side they were selling food, you know, and I was really shocked.
Not a single person digging or maintaining this tunnel would have realised that they were creating the future top tourist attraction of Sarajevo. The irony of war. Sarajevo's main market was hit by mortar shells on the 28th of August 1995, killing 43 people. It was not the first massacre at the market, but this event was the one that finally prompted NATO to strike Serb positions. Less than 3 months later, the war ended, with the signing of the Dayton Accord on the 21st of November 1995.
And now, after 4 years, we signed the Dayton Agreement, thanks God, and war was stopped. And now, what's very important, that we have a country, nothing changed. We have two entities, but we didn't lost any square meters in Bosnia. And also, we are show our neighbors that we are not so easy target way, and Europeans too.
In Sarajevo's historic coppersmiths quarter, the siege is being upcycled.
Yes, actually we try to make something nice of something bad, you know. So, you know, the story here about the war and everything. So, after the war, we have like 500,000 of these. That's original 76mm top from the mortar shell from the Siege of Sarajevo. So that's official number that it's during the siege, like 500,000 different calibers, of course, fell down on our city. So now you can imagine other part of the Bosnia, the number goes up, you know. So after the war, what we do, my father and other artists in the street decide to collect that, you know. People goes on the hill and collect that like a daily base job, you know, to sell, to survive, like a metal. And then these metal people melted and, you know, make something else, like a door holder, stuff like that. But in our case, we took that. It looks like that in the beginnings. Then the next step is to fill with the lead again, because then we are able to make the nice things on it. We use our tools that you can see around, and we start to work on these. So when we make something, again, we will heat up with the fire, move lead to the next one, and here we go. We make something like that. So today, and the first years out of the war, we say this is like a symbol of the peace. We make the vase for the flowers, umbrella holders on the bigger calibers. So from something negative to something positive, actually. For us, it's the good reminder on the bad time. For our guests, it's nice things actually to see something different. You cannot show that in the too many places in the world. Definitely, you have the war all around, unfortunately, but you don't have the craftsmen who are able to make something nice like that.
I will never understand why it took the international community so long to end the suffering of the people of Sarajevo. But to end on a positive note, the aim of the siege was to break their spirit. And in that, it failed completely.